Check that shit out, man, the internet. Let's see if those wrote something new about us or that stupid-ass flick.
Something you want to add to this briefing, Captain Hiller?
No, sir. I'm just a little anxious to get up there and whoop E.T.'s ass, that's all.
All right, look. There's only one return, okay? And it ain't of the king, it's of the Jedi.
That man is playing Galaga. Thought we wouldn't notice, but we did.
I'm running this monkey farm now, Frankenstein, and I want to know what the you're doing with my time.
Would you like to know more?
Hey guys, what's going on? You are listening to This Week in Geek.net's Future Imperfect. I am your captain on this cinematic voyage. This is going to be kind of part of a series that we're going to be doing, talking about the Star Trek franchise from beginning to end with the movies. I'm Mike the Birdman, but I'm not alone, as I'm joined by my compatriot from the lovely city of Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. I guess you can be my first officer.
Alex, the producer here.
And from the science division, basically the guy I consider who running the Daystrom Institute, the smartest guy that I know from the great land of Michigan.
Yeah, I'm Aaron Pollyea.
Yeah, this is something I'm kind of surprised we haven't done sooner, to be honest with you. And if we have done it before, it's been like a million years. And
you know, if anything, we're like Paramount. Every 3 or 4 years, we re-release the packages of new stuff. And don't forget, we probably, if we have talked about it, have been maybe the director's cut, but maybe not the special editions, or because you know there's like 3 or 4 cuts of each of these movies, right?
Yeah, and I sat down and watched both the director's cut. I don't remember enough about Wrath of Khan to say what's new to me, because it feels like I just saw this again for the first time. But years ago, Paramount used to supply us here at the show with a fairly consistent drip of media. And I think you and I, Alex, both got the Star Trek, the original motion picture 6 movie collection on 4K and Blu-ray.
Yeah.
So that's what I was watching this on. And I kind of got the idea, because I seem to recall a conversation me and Aaron had like a year ago or something. And I was like, I don't think I like the motion picture very much. And I'm like, we need content for the show. We haven't done a Future Imperfect in like a really long time. So I'm like, what can I look at now that I'm getting deeper in the Trek? I mean, I'm still writing for Modifius and whatnot. And I'm like, now I'm going to look at this through different eyes. And sitting down with Star Trek the Motion Picture as a child, I fucking hated this movie. I thought it was long, I was slow, thought it was boring. But now that I've had in-depth conversations with you, Alex, and with you, Aaron, about sort of the lived-in reality of Star Trek and just living through that writer's lens now, I'm like, I like this a lot more than what I used to. Like, I didn't expect to be as entertained by it as I was, because I used to felt the motion picture just dragged on. But watching it again, I was like, this was really fast. Like, I was never bored fucking once. I mean, maybe during like the beauty shot of the Enterprise where they're taking like, I sort of got feels like 15 minutes. But I watched this with the director's text commentary from the Okudas, and I was like, this is really cool. Like, I didn't know how much effort they went through to make this the best possible ship model they could. All the little details, like there's one shot where they're in engineering, and I think to force perspective, you see people working in radiation suits. From the way that they're scaled, they look like they're supposed to be adults. No, those are kids.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's really cool. Yeah. I had no idea.
The legacy of the motion picture is its technical production, not necessarily its cinematic execution.
Oh,
yeah.
See, I don't know. I'd say that its cinematic execution and its technical stuff are what stand out. Because the only thing that really doesn't stand out to me with the motion picture is the plot, because it's sort of a rehash of other ideas that have popped up. Mm-hmm. That being said, the motion picture is actually in my top third of Star Trek movies.
Okay.
Yeah, easily.
Wow.
Easily.
It's I have the least probably experience watching it. As a kid, I think I caught it on television when they would show it on like City TV, which would be like a 4-hour block, right? Because it was just stupid long with commercials in it. And like you said, Mike, the boring quote unquote aspect of it, probably stems from if you were a kid who grew up, we were all too old to have seen it when it first aired, the original show.
Oh no.
Mhm.
Oh no, no,
Um,
no. The show, yeah.
yeah, the show in first run, right? But most of us would have seen, even kids that weren't really into sci-fi stuff were used to seeing episodes of the original series in syndication reruns. It was always on. That being, having, obviously its moral compass and everything, it was a more action-based show. It had to be, everything had to be tied up within its 50-minute or 55-minute time slot. So we have this feeling in our head of it being an action-based show. Probably more so, obviously, than Next Gen became. Next Gen had its action moments, but Next Gen was more of a thinking and feeling show. So I think everybody was maybe expecting an adaptation like, what if we took the show, gave it, 3 episodes to tell its story, and amped the action and intensity up for cinematic levels, and that's what later films ended up being. Instead, what we got was somebody saying, "Hey, look at how much of a technical and cinematic marvel 2001 was. What if we can take that, but inject some of the the grandeur of the hit Star Wars that had just come out?" Because we know other movies were coming out around the same time that were trying to capitalize on Star Wars' success, and you could go 2 different ways in the spectrum. You could go more into the Star Wars-y type stuff, which I want to argue the Black Hole was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's like still trying to have that large establishing shots and like grand sets and like space wonder of 2001, but not really capturing what made it the best. And then you have Star Trek, which captured a lot more of what 2001 was doing right, but didn't quite get maybe what the appeal to the mass audience that Star Wars was.
Because like it's a lot more cerebral in plot, and it's kind of a weird thing. Plus, they introduced so many weird new things. Like the Klingons looked different than we'd ever seen them before.
Yeah. I would say
those
the motion picture
D7 shots. Those D7 shots were so good, even without like the new redone special effects. I have like original, like old Betamax of motion picture, and those D7s still look good.
I mean, yeah, it looks great, and obviously it's hard to describe. Like if you're a listener, there's many different versions of the film. If you're somebody who was introduced in the DVD era, you've probably seen. Was it the director's cut? I think, or of it. That was the DVD was the big deal, and then there was, I believe, when 4K first came out, you were only given the theatrical cut, which again had more changes made because they touched up things. And then now the most recent version is what they're calling the special edition, which is, I believe, sort of halfway between the director's cut. I don't think it's as long as the director's cut, but it has a lot of final things changed, like when they're on Vulcan, and a lot of the scenes have special effects to match not just like the production design closer, but to match continuity with the rest of the series better. Like if, for instance, if there's a description of what Vulcan looks like, they might have got the colors wrong in the original version, because either for time constraints or the fact that maybe it was retroactively changed in later series, and they now have brought everything to be in line as closely as they possibly can to have a set continuity from a production look and lore feel of the original series all the way through I guess technically Picard, but at least all the way up until like Nemesis, right? So it's what its legacy to me is. Obviously it's important because it's the first movie, but it's become more apparent to me that it is critical to the lore and I guess series quote unquote Bible that came after. Almost all of, and I feel like almost all of the love that most people that are maybe under 65 or 70 years old have for the original Trek characters come from the movies.
Yeah, like that's where that's where I first got to know the original series crew was via the movies. And I'm going to give you guys a hot take here. And it's probably not going to be popular, but it is what it is. Watching these two movies, I really don't like Kirk. Like a lot. And it's funny because I obviously everyone holds James T. Kirk in such reverence. I liked him more in the Kelvin timeline, at least in the first movie. I haven't seen Beyond in like forever, and in the Darkness I've seen like twice. So it's yeah, we'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
But it's like I just see this arrogant guy who just won't let go of the Enterprise, and this new guy, Decker, I think his name was taking.
Yeah, it's Decker. He's actually supposedly the son of the guy that was on Constellation in TOS that died with the Doomsday Machine.
Oh, cool. So it's like, all right, like just let this guy have his command. And I like how he stood up to Kirk saying, my duty as first officer is to challenge you when you're going to make a wrong decision. Like one of the weird things about this movie, and I completely forgot about this, is when they're going to warp and they generate a random wormhole and they're going to hit an asteroid. And I was like, I don't remember this.
See, that's, believe it or not, the wormhole scene I've said before is literally my first memory.
Oh, wow.
Because I saw this in the theater with my parents, and I was sitting on my mom's lap, and I remember the wormhole scene. Yeah, I was like 2. But I remember the wormhole scene. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like when the part that stuck out to me the most and kind of made me like this movie a lot more is when Decker is arguing with Kirk in the ready room. He's like, why did you countermand my order? He's like, because you didn't know what you were doing. He's like, what? He's like, if we fired the phasers, it would do something with the engines, and you don't know the ship like I do. I saved us. And Kirk's like, oh, well, I guess you did. He's like, yeah, it's like, I'm not here to tear you down. I'm here to help you. Just trust me.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
obviously it's about somebody coming to grips with their age, right? Obviously that's what the first couple movies, I think, as far as Kirk's like true legacy of why character people like him, that comes more specifically the fourth movie. But from 3 to 6, I think, is where you solidify the core crew as being like the personalities that people like come from the latter films, and then they retroactively apply it in their head to seasons 1 to 3. They're like, oh, so in the movies we see what they were like when they got older and comfortable and could relax around each other openly. And then in your head, you're like, you can hear your own headcanon and go, oh, so this is what their personalities were like in the series, like, even though it wasn't really shown.
Yeah, because like I don't have a lot of experience watching the original series. I've only seen about half of season 1 and bits and pieces there. And I'm like, Kirk wouldn't act like this, at least as far as I know. Like he seemed like he's not going to put his crew in danger. He listens to people around him. Sure, he'll make a rash decision here or there, but he's like always talking to Bones, always talking to Spock.
The first two movies are midlife crisis movies.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was getting.
The motion picture is he has already been out of command in a desk job for like 5 years. Right? So he hasn't been on Enterprise. So he's not the Kirk from the television show. He's lost his edge. He's lost his sort of connection with the crew. And when he comes back on board, you can make the argument that it was for the wrong reason, to basically just take command so he can kind of relive his youth in command of Enterprise. Sure, that's wrong, but it shows like how his command style has changed. And when he gets dressed down by Decker in that, you start to see the switch back to Kirk as he was in the original series. And then you watch Wrath of Khan and going forward, and he is still sort of that character. He's just more mature. But you see him screwing up in motion picture just because of that time away.
Because timeline wise, I'm probably gonna be wrong. Somebody's gonna yell at me, but like I'm assuming that
it's not 5 years. It's not 5 years. It's like
I was going to say
something like
we
that.
didn't like in my head. We didn't see years 4 and 5 on TV, so I'm assuming they went their 5-year mission, and then he got a desk job for a few years. And I think at the beginning of the movie they mentioned he's been was it in his position as, was it head of?
Fleet admiral or fleet operations or something.
Like a star hour in command of a starship for like a year and a half or something like that. That's what it was.
He's been. I think he said he's been in command for 2 years at Starfleet, some position, but it's a desk job.
Yeah.
So at least, like in my head, because of how much they age between the show, you know, we're talking. What was it? It was like 11 years between the last season and the movie. So I think in the show's time, it's only supposed to be 4 or 5 years. They did age a fair bit between, so it might have been better to have set it more real time.
Yeah, because there is a huge gap in time between the motion picture and Wrath of Khan. If you don't know, production wise, it's like 3 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say, didn't they start filming right when Star Wars came out and it became a hit? They like greenlit it right away. And it was like 70. It was like,
yeah, they had motion picture came out in 79, right?
Yeah.
And they had already been in pre-production for Star Trek Phase 2 for many years beforehand. So a lot of the stuff had already been built even before Star Wars had come out.
And I know that some of the people that worked weirdly on I know that the Phase 2 stuff they had, what was it was it John Saxon was in the pilots that they ended up rebranding and retitling as like Genesis or something, or Genesis 2. There were a couple TV movies that were meant to be like soft pilots for what could have been Star Trek, and then they retooled them. Some of the people that worked on those projects worked on that Starlost, the Canadian show that tanked that Harlan Ellison was working on. So like there have been like crew members split up from the 60s show that, you know, went to the Four Winds and tried working on projects. And I know that Phase 2, wasn't it like 74 or 75? They were already trying to do it after the first convention started up.
Mm-hmm.
So it was in production, at least 2 years with filming before it comes out. And then Wrath of Khan is like 82, is it?
Yeah, it's 82, but in universe, it's more like 7 or 8 years have passed.
Oh, okay. So they do. So they do. Because I had always wondered, like, I mean, it's a good explanation as to why everybody gained weight and looked older. but like the fact that there is a discrepancy in the way they look age wise between them, even though on paper it should only be like 16 months between the movies. It makes sense that in reality it was more like 4 years between.
It's more like seven
really
along that line. Yeah, and it's because there's a whole 5-year mission that occurs between the motion picture and Star Trek 2.
Oh,
and it's where Spock gets made captain. There's a whole series of adventures, and then by the time Wrath of Khan happens, Enterprise is back acting like a training vessel because she's just back at Earth now after another 5-year mission, and
everybody now is approaching full senior like position status. Because like when the motion picture is out and you see like Uhura and Chekhov and Sulu, like they're not junior officers anymore. They're regular seasoned officers, but they're not at like commander level.
Yeah, and I think the reason that is the case is that a lot of them, the characters I'm speaking of, like would have denied themselves promotion to stay together on Enterprise because of all these different things that have happened to them together, and they trusted each other. They knew the ship really well. So forgo promotion and actually do your job really, really well. Because in the end, like what is a promotion, right? In our utopian future, you're not getting any extra pay. You're in Starfleet to do what you want to do, what you love doing, and they're already doing that.
And they feel they can work best together. So that you have the three of them on the bridge when when Kirk shows up, and at that point Scotty's obviously been head of engineering essentially for forever? Yeah, not just there, but like isn't he of the space dock itself, or at least of like. He's on the special projects, right?
No, not until after Wrath of Khan. And that's
It is,
where he gets
okay.
put onto the transwarp project.
Okay, right. So yeah, so he's obviously a senior officer, and it is funny, people all the years have said, how Scotty's waistline was getting bigger in each movie. He was actually still pretty thin and trim in the first movie. I forgot about that. But what wasn't flattering was the horrible costumes they made them wear that accentuated any imperfection in a person's body.
Yeah.
Those silver uniforms are terrible.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the uniforms in TMP.
Yeah, it's
Like,
just like
outside of that, I think the costume and set design is fantastic, but it was quite rough looking, and it was like, oh no, for like, unless you were like really trim and in really good shape, not really a good look for most of them. Some of them were like, obviously Nimoy was always wafer thin, so it worked out. But like, if you have any love handles or anything on you, it just made you look like a schlub, unfortunately.
yeah, like not wrong. I mean, the only other thing about the motion picture that really kind of stands out to me, there are two moments. One where they're going over the solution to the V'ger thing, to like it's become sentient. It's been traveling through space for like 300 years. It wants to come home and understand why it was built. And it kind of reminds me of that Rick and Morty thing, was like, what do you do? I deal butter. What else is my purpose? You do butter.
You pass the butter. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, that's funny.
Obviously, where are they getting it from, right? But
yeah,
we're not going to be doing these movies in like traditional sense. We're going through every single plot. We're talking about our overall thoughts, and that's why we're sort of hopping around a little bit. As far as the plot is concerned, the basic plot is space cloud, destroy. Life form inside of it is actually sentient machine. Sentient machine views other machines as life forms and views organics on them as viruses or infestations, not believing in itself that any intelligent life could come from organic life. It has to be from machines. Because the Voyager satellites and projects, one of them got captured. It's Voyager 6, I think, right?
Yeah, it's Voyager 6. Yeah.
Gets sent through a black hole, which this is before we understood what black holes were, or at least the public. It would have been nicer if they said wormhole or something else. But like, it gets absorbed by a black hole and spit out the other end of the universe, and is discovered by a planet of sentient machines that have probably they don't explain it, but their creators have long since died. They have no recollection of their creators, but they're advanced. They find it. They think, oh, this must be proof that other life exists, in the universe beyond themselves even. So we're going to try to interface with it, see what its purpose is, and they realize its purpose was to gather information and return home to its creator. And so the planet itself, or the sentient robots it's assumed, are intrigued in themselves of like, whoa, this one was sent by its creator. It has an actual mission that was defined by its creator. We're going to help it do its mission, and maybe they would eventually learn about their creator. Blah blah blah. Who knows? You can speculate on that beyond. Yeah. But it starts becoming sentient. Basically, attach a whole bunch of stuff to it. It becomes sentient life. Absorbs as much information in the world as possible. But because it does everything on a literal, logical, straight path of no deviation or interpretation, which kind of, in today's day and age, where we understand maybe how artificial intelligence would work a little better in the general public, a truly artificial intelligent life that is truly can think for itself would not constrain itself necessarily to as narrow a path of how it would achieve its goals. But for the purposes of late 70s, there wasn't a lot of serious thought-provoking sci-fi hitting the mainstream anyway, as far as like big budget movies. So it gets a pass from me. Yeah. And it comes to Earth, and if you don't give it the information it wants to meet its creator and to have an interface with it, to exchange its information and learn from its creator basically why it was made, what's its purpose. And in doing so, they realize it can't understand emotion. It can't understand love, anything complex beyond the logical reasoning of a binary mind. And it destroys a crew member and then creates a creates a facsimile of the person, and decides Decker in true Riker form is like, I'm a bone that. And, and they kiss and they merge, and how they're able to interchange the. You don't know what it's going to create, if it creates anything. Is it going to create new life? Is it going to help it evolve? We don't know. I know that for many years, I don't know if it was like, because again, you guys are a little older than me, but like for me growing up when Star Trek was still quite big in the 90s, and with the kids speculating on things, I remember the talk was like, oh, that's the origin of the Borg. That was always the thought.
Yeah, it's been talked about in novels, but they're in beta canon at best. They've talked about it in Star Trek Online, but it's never super consistent as to what
And
this
I
thing
never
is.
thought
I never
that.
liked.
I never thought that.
I never liked the idea. I always thought like the Borg, the differentiation, especially once like Stargate was out, and they did more shows with like nanotechnology and nanobots and that, like the replicators and that. I was always under the impression that the Borg was born out of the nanotechnology, like a completely different alien technology from a pure machine. That it was that the Borg were never foundationally from pure machines.
Yes.
They were always enhanced organisms.
Now you see, the one thing I always thought that was weird in TMP growing up, and again, it's not like when I was 2 I was thinking about this. It's a Voyager probe, so it would have a golden record on it. Why didn't the machines listen to the golden record?
Yeah, the only thing I could think of in my head, I thought the same thing, is the reasoning behind why they didn't even approach it because they saw it as an analog technology that was incompatible with their digital mind?
I don't think so, because even on the outside of the golden record, there's like digital information on how, well, I mean, there's just instructions on how to use it, and that you have to be intelligent in order to use it. So they would have seen that an intelligence was already here that was biological.
So the only explanation that works would be it in the wormhole or black hole, it was damaged and parts were missing.
Yeah.
Like that what they received, like what we see is not the full probe, and it was the remnants of what wasn't shorn by the black hole.
Or the,
and they tried to repair it, and all they found was the logic memory circuits. And they're like, well, that's all there is. Well, this is what we have to go on. Maybe like it could have been easily explained with, well, the aliens are sending it back to get repaired, to be whole again. And what was missing was the human element, the elements that we added to show our culture.
Like when I look at the plot and how it's presented in this, and again, looking back this through a more mature lens, an older lens, and just looking at Star Trek a little bit differently, since you, Alex, and Aaron, you guys have shaped my opinion a lot over the last couple of years as I've worked on the IP, but also watched it differently. It's amazing how much this plot I really like. And Aaron, you said something so, I don't know what the word is, but it really made it sing for me when you're like, this is the most Star Trek of all the movies. And I really sat with that thing that you said in our little private chat. And the more I watch the movie, I'm like, you know what? I really agree with that. It's not just action adventure with phasers or the Borg or the Klingons or whatever. I'm like, there's something about this that says something. And that's something that some of the other movies don't necessarily do in this particular way. Like to your point, Alex, you just said, audiences weren't necessarily ready for a thinking movie post Star Wars. And like I said, yeah, I come at this liking it a lot more, seeing the director's cut. Again, I don't know what else was added technically, but
a lot of it was placing
like beauty
things,
shots.
But also to enhance a little bit of the dialogue. A lot of what was done was fixing perceived errors in the special effects. And I'm going to give you just a quick hot take before we move on to Wrath of Khan. You're saying that the motion picture is the most Star Trek of all the movies. Do you want to know what I think is the second most Star Trek of all the movies?
Insurrection?
Yes.
I would actually agree. It's either, I would agree. Actually, yeah. It's either that or like
it is
Generations, and only barely.
yeah. With Insurrection, if you take Insurrection, obviously it's the budget that does the big thing. You could have said, hey, and not just because a TV movie itself is inherently lower value than a theatrical movie. If you had slotted this in if they said, okay, All Good Things, we're not going to do All Good Things right away. We're going to do another season, and if they had said like a 2 or 3 parter, it would have made a very, very, very good television epic event.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it would have fit in. It wouldn't have felt like, hey, we squeezed a Hollywood movie into this. And I remember people complaining back in the day saying, oh, Insurrection just feels like a TV
big, long episode. Yeah.
And it's like, well, out of all the movies that came out, it's the one that felt the most like, it's not necessarily the most cinematic movie, the most exciting movie, the most memorable movie, but to that, wording of, what felt like the most Star Trek, that was kind of the most of the next gen stuff, especially. It's the most Star Trek of the movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because... there isn't like, some crazy actions thing happening at the beginning, and then, Riker having to turn to the camera being time travel, like saying things that are for the dumbest of the audience, because anybody watching Trek would have understood what was happening. But like, they didn't have to follow the Hollywood tropes of like putting words in to explain things to the lowest common denominator. But anyway, that's for a later time talk. I think with the motion picture, it's worth watching. I don't think it should not be your entry level into Trek at all. I think for a lot of people, you should probably start nowadays with picking a good next gen episode or two, that some of the one-off ones maybe, and seeing how you feel, and then jumping back or watching a little bit of the original series. The problem with the original series is if you're like Gen Z or Alpha, they don't watch anything that looks quote unquote old. And I will say this about the motion picture: it looks the oldest, even though it has the best special effects. It looks and feels like a 70s movie still. Where when you jump to where we're going with Wrath of Khan, it's a big visual leap and just visual aesthetics of how it's presented in cinema.
Yeah, Wrath of Khan does look better, but I will say I've introduced a couple teens to Star Trek recently, and they did not have a problem with TOS.
I think it has to do with discoverability. How, if they're presented by people that are loving of the franchise and understand it, it's one thing. I don't think if you randomly put a tablet page of all the Star Trek stuff in front of kids and had them pick one, if they picked the motion picture, I don't know if they would continue.
Yeah. You know what? That's almost a topic for another day. How do you get a new person into the franchise? Because, again, this will be a topic for much deeper discussion in the future, because if you start with like Strange New Worlds and they go back to this crew, they're going to be like, what the fuck is going on? It doesn't vibe. Yet if you show someone like Blair, my wife does not like Star Trek, yet I showed her the Kelvin timeline and she didn't mind Star Trek 2009 and Into Darkness. She's like, they're fine. You know what I mean?
The problem is it's too busy.
Yeah, exactly. There's like a lot going on. It's basically an action movie that happens to have phasers.
Fast doesn't mean bad. That's why I'm not saying fast. Because I would say that Wrath of Khan is a fast movie. But it doesn't feel busy. Yeah.
Like when I went back to watch Wrath of Khan, I know it's like the gold standard. It's one of the best movies ever made. And I feel bad, but I like it, but I don't love it. You know what I mean? And I feel terrible saying that.
It's the movie that I would say the casual fan tuned into and was like, yeah, you know what? This is awesome. I'm going to go back and buy some VHS tapes of the original show for $39.99 for 2 episodes each. Like that's
I got collector plates.
That's the crowd. Well, and it's the movie that I would say that's the movie that really got the like fan convention stuff going.
And it was the pop culture zeitgeist, right?
Yeah, posters. And then the third movie, we'll get to that later. And then, it's between Wrath of Khan and Voyage Home that got the general audiences pumped enough that because they were launching next gen, that made next gen into having 25 million viewers a week, that sort of thing. Like, had you not had Wrath of Khan and eventually Voyage Home, you would not have had the momentum, I think, from the studios or from the people. So what's important is they went and took a little bit of lore from the original show, from one of the more popular episodes, especially in reruns, and they went, can we expand this into a story? And what they did was, for the first time, I would say, to end with a little bit of the motion picture, what I did like was the beauty shots and everything. It did make it feel almost like an Irwin Allen, like Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea kind of movie. Just the way like it was presented. And if you look at Wrath of Khan is the first time Trek to me, since some of the episodes in the 60s, felt like a naval movie. It felt like a naval battle, and it felt like not quite Dust Boat, but we're talking like it really did. There are parallels to Hunt for Red October. You know what I mean?
Yes, there are.
So I think because of that, you were able to capture an audience that wasn't just hardcore sci-fi fans.
The thing that I really liked about Wrath of Khan, especially, you guys know I'm a big prop guy. I'm a big costume guy. And this is the first appearance of the maroon uniform.
Yeah, this is by far the best uniform. It is my favorite.
And again, to talk
it's my
about
second favorite.
We're not body shaming anything, but we'll say this was much more flattering to all body types.
Yeah, like they look regal, they look good, and I love the Kobayashi Maru sequence in the beginning. I'm thinking that's really cool. Like, how did cadets pass this? And I know they had the recreation room. They had like early holodeck at this time in theory, but obviously they didn't use it. But I'm like, that's really clever. And just again, seeing them try to work out the problem, and just this movie felt like the characters knew each. Like I felt more camaraderie, like more quips between Spock and Kirk and Bones, and everything. Like it felt different. And one thing I really liked about it too is Kirk is clever in this movie. Like he's trying to get the command codes to the Reliant because Khan doesn't know that this shit happens. So he's like, we'll transfer you the shit on Genesis. Just hold on a minute.
And obviously homages to that with Nemesis, with when they ram the ships. Yeah. Like there's callbacks to this because this becomes a pivotal movie in the franchise where they go to for bits of lore for other episodes and movies. And like you said, this is the first time. And I mean, there's what, 70 some odd episodes of the original show. So sometimes it's hard to tell if I missed something. But to me, this was the first definitive time where you see Kirk's, quote unquote genius as a captain of how, like, you see him thinking, you see the machination, you see the wheels spinning, and it was a little bit less of, yes, he hams it up, some of his presentation is a little over the top, but that's just Shatner. It's just who he is. But you see him do much more physical facial acting in this movie onward.
Yeah, like it feels more thoughtful acting. Like I think his best performances, again, this opinion may change as I go through these movies again. I think he's the best in Wrath of Khan and Voyage Home. Those are the ones where I'm like, this is likable, relatable. This is every man Kirk that everybody can get. There's something here for everybody. Yeah. And it's just like, feels like a great entry point. Like, I know there's some problems with the timeline where Chekhov didn't technically know who Khan was and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, all right, fine.
You
whatever.
Can explain that as there's no freaking way he works on that bridge and Sulu and other people don't go, dude, you got to hear about this crazy dude that we had to deal with a little while ago.
Yeah, exactly.
It'd be like you can imagine Chekhov being like, wow, that was a harrowing day we had. And they're like, no, dude. They're playing cards or whatever. And they're like, dude, be glad you weren't here for this crazy dude.
See, exactly. Be glad you're on shore leave.
The one web series that was done for Star Trek that, why can't I remember the darn name of it? That
Star Trek Continues of Gods and Men.
Yeah, Continues. They actually
where they got him back.
Yeah, they explain it as like Chekhov was on Enterprise, just wasn't on the bridge. He was like in security or something like that. So yeah, it's that. Yeah, Chekhov was on Enterprise during the events of Space Seed. It's just that we don't see him because the actor was.
He wasn't on shift.
Yeah, he wasn't on shift.
So yeah, it's no big
Delta
deal.
shift,
But
baby.
yeah, no, Wrath of Khan, while
Yeah.
I hold it in incredibly high regards, I think it's actually my third favorite movie. Which is weird to say because
see
everyone loves it.
Uh-oh. Oh, your favorites are Into Darkness and Five?
No, I would actually put 5 above any of the like Into Darkness and all that. But no, like
Yeah.
Undiscovered Country and Voyage Home.
And Section 31?
No. But yeah,
I almost threw
what I
up there.
really like about Wrath of Khan, though, is that it really builds the world out in a realistic way.
Yes.
Like every little detail, like down to here's Project Genesis, and they have like bespoke, cases lining the halls that are like Starfleet Corps of Engineers. There's all these little things on the walls inside the ship, or when you go into sick bay, and you see people being treated, and they have like the Mylar sheets on, and you're like, at least at the time, that was pretty futuristic, right?
Yeah.
And oh boy, in talking about Shatner actually acting really well, when Scotty's nephew dies, and he says, give the order,
He's
Captain.
carrying the body up.
And Kirk says, yeah, warp speed. The order's given warp speed. And he dies, and you see that look on Kirk's face. And then James Doohan, man, that guy in that scene right there, you feel for Scotty.
And he was a highlight in my mind rewatching the first one too.
Yeah, absolutely.
His just the simple things of when he's meeting up with Kirk again, they're talking, and he's like, "I'll get the ship ready for you." And it's the small things that you wouldn't have seen in the original show, and the other, I would say, the other senior officers didn't really have the interactions in that movie with him. Where like they're on the little shuttle going together, and he just like puts his hand on his arm, like the tender moments of like, here's my really good friend that I've known for 20 years or whatever. And they're both senior level, people. Like he's not technically under him on the ship anymore. So it's like it was one of the first times you got to see that Kirk had real friends with his crew.
Yeah. Like there was a real sense of camaraderie, a relationship,
and respect. It's like he's like, I don't know if we can get it working. He goes, but for you, I'll get it working. And
you realize
you see that sort of carry forward. I feel like Scotty was the highlight of most of the original crew movies.
Yes.
It's almost like he got to show more of himself than he did on the original show.
And it wasn't just random techno.
No,
babble.
it wasn't.
He developed as a character.
There's like the one moment again in Wrath of Khan where you realize how bad the stakes are when Scotty in engineering passes out from the radiation.
He doesn't want to endanger anybody else. He'll do it himself and won't let anybody else do it.
Like, what a man! What a man! That's the guy you want next to you in a situation like that. That's just crazy. What else can I say about Scotty? But the stakes in it are real. All the special effects are obviously top notch. All great models. But the action sequences are meaningless if it wasn't for the fact that you care about the characters. Every time a phaser is shot or a photon torpedo is fired, it actually matters. You don't have weapon spam. There's no weapon spam here. Every shot has a point for the story.
What's that? Fire everything from 2009.
Yeah. Like one thing I thought was
cool in the moment, but when you sit back with the experience of time, it's not cool. Like, could you imagine you're encountering a naval vessel, and you're at war? They don't want to surrender, and the captain of the naval vessel says, "Fire everything we have."
Not happening.
That's not gonna. Not all at once.
Yeah. Like, one of the things that I also really appreciate about this movie too is we've seen another Starfleet ship that isn't a shuttlecraft. We're seeing
Yeah.
something that's like a frigate class. I think Mirandas are classified as frigates. So it's like, that's cool. It's something we've never seen before. And it was such a design departure from the Constellation class, or no, Constitution, sorry. It's like, because that roll bar is interesting. And hell, like even in Star Trek canon, there were Miranda classes present in the Dominion War. So that ship was still in service as late as 2379, 2380.
Didn't
So
we see them? I was going to say, didn't we see them in a bunch of Next Gen episodes?
Yeah, like they're still in service because they're great
around.
for planetary patrol.
They're around,
Yeah.
but it's more just
Okay,
Deep Space Nine that we see the Mirandas. We see Excelsiors
Okay.
more in
So,
Next Gen.
Is the explanation that they're no longer considered like, bleeding edge, so we're going to send them out to, to the frontier, essentially?
So it depends. Like, it's all beta canon, really, but obviously I've written tons of stuff for starships in Star Trek Adventures, and my explanation is that most have been retired by Next Gen. Most are mothballed. Those that are still around are used for like light duty. They're just not cutting edge at all. They're 100 years old. So by the time like Wolf 359 kicks around, you start seeing like some of them brought back out just to act as stopgaps. And then when the Dominion War hits, it's like all hands on deck. Let's just get everything we have with a warp core online and thrown into the fight. And that's why you do see Mirandas, even in the final battles of Deep Space Nine, fighting and getting one-shotted, which actually kind of ticks me off. That shouldn't be happening. Starships should not be fighter craft. But regardless, you do see Mirandas actually
the argument would be we're strapped and we have to retrofit whatever we can.
Like you have to build like Frankenstein fleet.
It's the Frankenstein fleet. And it's also just reactivate everything we can, because a photon torpedo is a photon torpedo regardless of what launches it.
It's like the equivalent of retrofitting old diesel naval vessels in the era of nuclear subs because we just needed to. Not because we should.
They'll work.
We need bodies.
Yeah,
basically.
they'll work.
Yeah.
They'll do a job, just maybe not as well as a brand new ship.
And at the very least, yes, you can retrofit them for weaponry, but at the very least, you can use them to transport supplies.
Yeah. One of the other things that I noticed about Wrath of Khan, correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron, is this not the first appearance of the assault phaser? Like the kind of handheld, like more oomph phaser?
No,
or am I misremembering
it would have
this?
been in TOS, because I remember like the you do see it when they're fighting the gods, when they break like the galactic barrier. Kirk has like a phaser rifle at that point. But yeah, it's been around. It's been around. It just wasn't in TMP, if I remember correctly. I don't remember a phaser rifle there.
They already had I was going to say, I think like the long rifle was in the first episode, like the pilot, wasn't it?
Yeah. And then in Wrath of Khan, they had the handheld phasers that were more gun shaped as opposed to
right. The ones that okay, I know what you mean. The ones that look like the Needler from Halo.
Yeah, and they have like a horizontal band of phaser emitters on the front.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's right. That's hitting me now. The story behind it is a little more fantastical. Even though it's it's still sci-fi, it does have more of the Star Wars feel, in quotes, but also in the amount of time that had come between, we had already had Empire Strikes Back and the bazillion Italian knockoff movies that had come, right? And the Roger Corman stuff. So this, was, I think Close Encounters had already come out, but was this the same year as E.T.?
82, I think E.T., yeah.
It's 82 or 83, whatever, but this was, the first time that it felt like a blockbuster franchise other than Star Wars could be big at the box office and sell toys, because that was now the big craze, right? We had to sell toys, and we had to sell, phasers and posters and all this. And I feel like if you were a 70s or 80s kid and you were into Star Trek and and you were going to fill up your wall with posters, the Wrath of Khan poster was like ever present.
Yeah, because I think it was also drawn by Drew Struzan, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it was very visually striking. Like,
and we performance wise, obviously, what more can we say about Montalban, right? The dude, you know, if you ever thought that like Shatner was maybe chewing up the scenes in anything, you know, Montalban said, "Hold my beer."
yeah.
You want to go? Oh, we can go, and we'll make it big. And it worked. It's memorable without coming across as cheesy. Like they somehow made it work. And for a movie where I don't think they spend even a minute technically acting opposite each other.
Yeah, they're never in the same room.
So he's acting against not a green screen, but like a stand-in basically to stare at the whole time through the screens. Like, I wonder, you know, what that would feel like. If you ask Shatner, he would probably end up talking entirely about himself. But it must have been a challenge at the time. And I could almost feel like the energy on that movie was so much more up than in motion picture that I almost feel like it must have felt like all the actors had to then up their game. So, like, plot-wise, we should probably just briefly mention again, for anybody that doesn't know, Wrath of Khan is a sequel to Space Seed. Is that a season 1 or season 2 episode?
I think it's season 2, I want to say.
Where it builds the lore of basically World War III happens. We have, I can't remember if it's prior to World War III or after World War III. I think it's prior.
It's prior to World War III.
Super Soldier Program. I mean, loosely pulling from, I guess the lore and documents of like the Nazis trying to build the Ubermensch, the Superman, like the Uberman, super soldier. So again, a little Captain America-y, in a sense. But the idea was, you know, we'll build the genetically modified human to be smarter, better, and everything. And then it turns out they all become tyrants. And it's like, oh, so we weren't making a future where all man could be elevated. We made a future where we made a few of these people and they all waged war and killed each other. And then one was basically left as the victor because he was just devious and evil and powerful, but not necessarily evil like he wants to murder everybody. He just wants to conquer and control everything because he feels with his own power that the only way to move humanity forward is through his vision.
So it was actually a lot of augments that were made by lots of different countries. And the augment war happened in the 1980s into the early 1990s. So like everybody on board the sleeper ship Botany Bay was actually an augment. It wasn't just followers, quote unquote. They were all augment that were followers.
He was just the most devious of them all, the leader.
Yeah, exactly. And the other augments were sort of defeated. It's just that he was the one that controlled the most of Earth at the time, and he was able to flee on one of these sublight sleeper ships.
So Khan Noonien Singh, did they ever say specifically that he was supposed to be from like Indian subcontinent?
I don't think it's been specifically said.
Like it wasn't quite like an inappropriate brown face, but it was borderline on it. But considering in the 60s what you would commonly see, so it wasn't. It was more supposed to be like, I guess, he's from, you know, with a name like Khan, you know, you would think, okay, it's is it Mongolia, you know, East Asian. And then Singh being the most common name in India.
So the ship historian in Space Seed does speculate that Khan could be Sikh from northern India, but like it's never confirmed.
See, I was always under the impression that yes, he might have been from that area, but the idea behind him was he had the genetic traits of like every man from every race. Like they tried to take the best of every type of person, quote unquote, and made a Superman, and he just happened to be from that area, so that's why he had that name.
That's possible too. Yeah.
I mean, it's weird how they tried to make Khan part of Picard season 2 with like that little time travel thing. You see the thing in like uh fucking Data's ancestors desk
Yeah,
or
and
whatever.
then they like try to reverse, like they try to change when the eugenics wars happen.
Yeah,
we
I'm
don't
like,
talk
wait.
about we don't talk about the alternate timeline of modern storytelling
Mhm.
if we can avoid it for the movie's sake and the era. It was what it
Yeah.
was, and basically what happens is they outsmart him using his own arrogance and vanity, and just narcissism, because he couldn't possibly conceive of anybody being smarter than him, and because of that, he underestimates the fact that so much has changed in several hundred years that he wouldn't understand necessarily the tactics, or the technological abilities. And in doing that, it's one of the few times where the villain wasn't destroyed. They discuss with him, and they're like, "We're going to give you a planet. You're out of time. You're a person out of time and space. We don't know what you're going to do with your life, but you can have a planet for you and your people, and it'll be rough. You can conquer it. You can control it, and hopefully, Starfleet people will come and check in on you, and see how you're progressing and see how you're doing, because we're not here to kill you. You're a product of your time. Basically, you didn't ask to be genetically engineered to be the way you are."
Mhm.
And I believe the guest scientist of the week decides to go and live with him and be like
His wife, right?
his wife,
Yeah.
princess, whatever.
Mhm.
And they end on that, and everybody was, even after the show ended, everybody had sort of thought like, oh, maybe we'll do another episode with him, because he's one of the very few alien adversaries, or not alien, but adversaries that got away, had an out that wasn't like prison or death, and wasn't a god.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
they're like, well, we can do something with him. So when they brought him back, it was a brilliant idea, where they're like, it shows that in the 10, 20 years, like I think it's supposed to be about 20 years between, just based on how everybody aged up and how they looked.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, well, the space
something
siege
like
took
that.
place in 2267, and
Okay.
when does Wrath of Khan happen? Like 2283, I think.
Yeah, closer to 15 to 20 years, something like that, right? Have gone by,
85,
and
85.
whatever's been
Sorry.
okay, yeah. So whatever's been happening in the interim, with Starfleet, things have been expanding, and it's stuff that, again, nowadays on the modern show, they show the faults of Starfleet's expansion and the Federation's expansion is that they've sometimes stretched themselves too thin, and then the wars have stretched, blah blah blah. Things are eroding from the original vision, and at some point, Starfleet stopped checking in on him, and their son was going nova, and his wife died, and other people died. The planet became mostly inhospitable, and he gets angrier and angrier, thinking that Kirk and everybody has betrayed him. At the end of the original episode, while he doesn't agree with losing, there was a bit of respect given, in that he's like, he didn't think Kirk was his equal, but he respected that he found a way to win at that moment, and he thought, okay, he's a man of his word. And Starfleet sounds like they're men of their word. They're gonna make sure everything's okay. Blah blah blah, and they didn't. Starfleet dropped the ball.
Yeah,
big time.
Starfleet never checked in
And
on them, and then
They never
and
did.
it wasn't. Yeah, they never did, and it wasn't the sun that went supernova. It was another planet that blew apart in the SETI Alpha
Right.
system. Yeah.
Right. Sorry. That's what it was. Yeah. And he's a little bitter and a little angry at what happened.
Oh yeah.
As
Just
you
a
would
little
be,
miffed.
as you would be too, as your people are dying out. You feel abandoned. Your wife is dead because she wasn't, genetically modified. She wasn't able to sustain herself in the harsh new reality of where they lived. And basically, he has ear parasites that are hilariously awesome and take over people's brains, and he ends up commandeering a ship and finding out Kirk is there, and there's a big battle, and there's the Genesis machine that can create or can take matter and reconfigure it into new life, and interesting idea. And there's the big everybody remembers the dogfight in space, or dogfight, sorry, the submarine battle in space, as well as the buried alive stuff. It's very, very cinematic. It would not have fit, I think, as a TV show. It works better on the big screen.
Well, yeah, because you need that tension, you need that grandiose scale. Like, you needed those Titans on separate sets, more or less, to really sell it. When Khan say, "From hell's heart I strike at thee," or "Revenge is a dish best served cold." You needed Ricardo to breathe in those moments, and Kirk also needed moment to have his Khan moment, or have his moment with Leonard Nimoy where he passes away. Like, there's a lot of really powerful stuff in that movie.
And
Like,
the last thing I'll say, other than I love it, is
Mhm.
this is the movie where a lot, not all, but a lot of like pop culture references in other media and just the cultural zeitgeist come from.
Oh yeah.
The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Mhm.
It has been used countless times in TV, movies, and
Comic books.
video games, to the point where like there are kids that never watch Star Trek that know it's a Star Trek quote and will use it.
Yep.
And many others, but I think that the Khan yelling thing, that's become an internet meme. But as far as the needs of the many thing, specifically, I feel has been used more, and it's probably the most memorable aspect of the movie outside of the fandom itself.
Yeah. Like, it was everywhere. It was inescapable. And yeah, like, it really set the standard for what a Star Trek movie could be. And I think that's what encouraged, Star Trek 3 and 4. And then obviously when TNG came out, like, that was the kick in the ass to franchise. Yes, the motion picture was successful, very successful, but Khan changed what the game could be. It made it accessible to everybody while still catering to older fans like ourselves who knew the history of who Khan was and everything. Yeah, like, it gave everything. And the fact that it had the balls to kill off a major character, not just some rando of the week, like Spock's dead. That's fucking intense.
And that was the reality for a while, right? Like people, like there was never an intention of him coming back until they entice him with like, well, I'll do it if I can direct.
Yeah. And he did.
Yeah,
right?
and yeah, so I mean, ultimately, it's fantastic. I mean, every Star Trek movie I feel is at least worth watching once. There's definitely something to gain out of everything. I would invite people to reevaluate the motion picture, give it a whirl, see what you think. Wrath of Khan is a classic, but I might suggest, if you're going to watch that one, watch it and enjoy it, whatever. But look around what Aaron said, how they fill out the world. The fact that they made the Genesis Project, this whole thing. They're talking about other areas of Starfleet that are not just exploration. Like, there's actual science. There are people who are not just officers on a starship. Like, you're a scientist, you're a biologist. Like, it made the world come alive. Like, there was more questions. Like, I wanted to know. Like, as Aaron mentioned, that's the Starfleet Corps of Engineers. What's that? Right?
You know what? If you pair this with watching Space Seed First, that's a good 1-2 punch. Not for everybody. That's a good way to get new people into the franchise.
Yeah, especially
like, here's a sample of the original show with one of the more popular episodes, and here's the direct movie sequel that came out 15 years later.
Yeah, like, it's honestly, I say, it's really worth people's time, and I'm glad we're doing this retrospective, going through all the movies again with a more mature lens of, oh, look, phasers and the Borg. I'm being forced to think more, and I really like that about revisiting these. Like, I can appreciate these on a different level now.
I'm glad.
So I guess with all that said, I guess next time we're talking The Search for Spock and The Voyage Home.
Which it's funny. It's the movie of the original franchise that I've seen the most, and the one I've seen the least. In fact, I don't think I have ever seen Search for Spock in its entirety more than once.
Wow. Okay. Well, that'll be exciting. So, guys, look forward for that. Like I said, these are going to be recorded whenever we find time. Depending on when this is released, I don't know. We're going to be doing just more content that's more generic, but we always want to have a Star Trek thing in our back pocket. So we've got a lot of movies to talk about. We're probably going to look at other seasons as well. And I know me and Alex have talked about maybe revisiting other sci-fi series. I know you've mentioned to me The Expanse. You've mentioned to me Silo.
I've been trying to get
For All Mankind.
Aaron. I'm trying to get him to watch Silo and For All Mankind.
I mean,
so we can just gush for
it would be a
hours.
non-stop like 6-hour marathon of just us dissecting each scene in, at the very least, in For All Mankind.
You have no idea, Michael, how happy those shows actually make me to watch.
I'm looking forward to it. Like, I'm hoping we can do those. I want to talk about Battlestar Galactica. I've got I don't know why. I saw something the other day and I'm like, I haven't seen that in a really long time and I want to revisit it. So
if you want to just let your goofy out, I will send over so you guys can watch Space Rangers. It's only like 6 episodes long, and it has It was from the era of Star Trek's popular. Let's make our own Star Trek. But it's
no
it's
budget Canadian.
It's got Kerry Tagawa as an alien in it on the crew, and what's her name from Kindergarten Cop that plays the principal? Linda Hunt, and a few other people. It is like a hodgepodge of people, and they're space cops, but not to be confused with the Jerry Anderson show. What was that? Space Precinct, which is awesome.
Oh yeah.
See, there's so much from the I swear you can trace everything back to how popular Wrath of Khan got, that then led to Star Trek: The Next Generation, and then we got a ton of crappy but awesome shows in the early '90s that then led us to having some pretty awesome shows now. But yeah, that's it. That's a little preview for anybody listening. Who knows when they're going to come out? But there is so much stuff that we can cover.
Yeah, like I said, it's a nice time to revisit these as a fan, as a writer, and just wanting to know more about the art of filmmaking, but also the lore behind the IP that I have the privilege to work on. So the fact that I get to explore this with 2 veterans like you and Aaron, that's really awesome. Like I said, we're going to have a lot of good conversations. So anyway, guys, I guess from the great land
Pollyea.
of Michigan, we have been from the Genesis planet of Kitchener, Ontario.
Alex, the producer.
And from the weird space station that got absorbed into V'ger, I've been Mike the Birdman. We'll catch you guys again next time, right here on thisweekingeek.net.
Time. One shall stand, one shall fall. Why throw away your life so recklessly? That's a question you should ask yourself, Megatron.
We came, we saw, we kicked its ass.
That's right, Mr. Peabody.
Quiet, you.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
You don't understand.
I do. I understood that reference.
Mission successful. Shutting down.